So, as far as the US and Iran relationship is concerned, we will have to start discussing this relationship after the collapse of Ottoman Empire. When the Ottoman Empire was collapsed on the Arabian Peninsula, then two big country emerged out of this Ottoman Empire. On the western side of the peninsula was the Saudi Arabia, and on the eastern side it was the Iran, which emerged as a big country. In both of these country, a lot of oil also was discovered. So Saudi Arabia started exploiting this oil, and whatever money actually they earned through this oil resources, they started spending this money on building roads, infrastructure. So that's how they became some kind of developed countries. On the other hand, Iran, despite having discovered the resources, was not having the technology that was required to be able to exploit these resources. So that is the reason why they some of the American and British company came to help Iran in this regard, and that's how the Anglo, you can say, Persian company was formed. This was some kind of joint venture company which started exploiting these resources. But after some period of time, these uh, Iranians realized that the money being generated by exploitation of these resources is not being spent on the welfare of the Iranians. Instead, this money is being taken away by the American or British company. So that is why the democratically elected leader of Iran, and his name was Mossadegh, was wanted to nationalize these resources so that they can be used for the welfare of Iranian people. But this scheme of resource being nationalized did not go well with the American companies and British company. That's why they staged some kind of coup against Mossadegh, and he was forced to flee the country. And again, the Shah, the Iran Shah Pahlavi, was again established in the Iran. So, because he was a puppet of US and Britain, and he wanted to develop Iran on the lines of the Western developmental model, and that was the reason why actually he started introducing a lot of reforms in Iran. For example, he opened a lot of schools, and he also started giving a lot of freedom to the women also in Iran. These kind of reforms did not go well with the Islamist fundamentalist, because they realized that this was some kind of interference in their religious matters. So that is the reason why, under the leadership of Ayatollah Khamenei, who was also living in exile, all these fundamental came together to stage a coup against the Shah Pahlavi, and he was also forced to flee the country, and that's how the Ayatollah Khamenei became the ruler of the Iran. This revolution is also known as Islamic Revolution. That is why once this revolution took place, this created a lot of problems, in the other neighboring countries of the Arabian Peninsula, especially for the Saudi Arabia, because this country was scared about the fact that this Islamic revolution may spread in their own country also, because people were very much impressed by this revolution. And the another factor why this Saudi Arabia was concerned was because of the fact that this Saudi Arabia was being ruled by a monarch. So that's why these people of Saudi Arabia did not enjoy as much democratic rights as the Iranian people were enjoying. So it was like this. It was like Arab Spring. You know, when Arab Spring started in Africa, then it spread from one country to another country, and that is why all these Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and some other neighboring countries was also very much scared about the fact that this Islamic revolution may spread in their own country also. So that and Iran also tried to basically tried to influence all those Shia living in other countries also for this kind of revolution. That's why Iraq also was concerned, because majority of the people living in Iran belongs to Iraq and belongs to the Shia community, despite the fact that it was being ruled by the Saddam Hussein, who was a Sunni. So that's why Saddam Hussein was also concerned, and that was the reason why Iraq and Iran war took place. In these wars, Saudi Arabia as well as US gave full support to the Saddam Hussein, but unfortunately Saddam Hussein could not get succeeded as much as they may have hoped for. So that is from that time onwards the relationship between the US and Iran started deteriorating, and you will be surprised to know that the first nuclear plant in Iran was established with the help of US. But later on, when Ahmadinejad came to the power in Iran, then he again actually started these nuclear plant, although they were established for the purpose of generating electricity. But when Ahmadinejad came to the power, then he also started working about how the nuclear bomb can be produced. This is what exactly the Western country as well as US suspect. So that is why a lot of sanction was imposed against Iran, and the relationship between US and Iran started deteriorating. Later on, when the Ahmadinejad, when this Khatami became a president, then he was much more liberal compared to the Ahmadinejad. That's why there was a deal signed between US and other P5 members plus France on the one hand, and on Iran on the other hand. So this deal was signed between these powers, according to which the Iran had to open their what is called as the inspection for this nuclear reactor. For sudden inspection, he has to close his heavy water reactors, and then he has to reduce the number of centrifuges that he was operating. So there was a lot of you can say thing that Iran was supposed to be doing under this deal, but when the Trump came to the power, then he actually refused. He came out of this deal saying that this deal does not prevent Iran from making a nuclear bomb, because it does not talk about the ballistic missile. He said that this is the worst deal that America could have signed ever. and it did not anyhow prevent the Iran from making a nuclear bomb. So that's how he came out of the this deal, and he imposed even more stricter sanction than what was imposed earlier. Uh, and in recently also he has killed, the US has killed the Soleimani. So why exactly Soleimani was killed? Because as I told you that Iran does not fight war generally directly, because he fight the war through their proxies. Like for example, in Lebanon, he support the Hezbollah there. In Yemen, he is supporting the Houthi. In where in the Palestine is supporting the Hamas. In Iraq also he is supporting a lot of Shia groups operating in Iraq, and in Syria also it support Qatif, Hezbollah and some other Shia group operating in Syria. Syria. So because the as long as the ISIS was there in Iraq, both US as well as all the Shiite groups were fighting together against the ISIS, because ultimately the aim of the Iran was also to anyhow protect the Iraq, because as I told you, like right now this Shia government has come to the power in Iraq, so Iraq also wields lot of influence in the Iraqi government. So ultimate aim of the Iran was to protect the Iraq from ISIS, which was a Sunni group basically. So that's why the both US as well as the Shiite group was fighting shoulder to shoulder against this ISIS. But once the ISIS has been uprooted, these Shiite group started attacking the US interest in Iraq, and recently the one military contractor was killed in one attack. That is the reason why Soleimani was killed by US. Because Soleimani was considered as the architect of all the war that Iran is fighting through their proxies. And now we will have to see exactly whether this conflict is going to get escalated further or not, because because both the US and Iran don't want war, because US don't want war because it is already bogged down in Afghanistan. So that's why it doesn't want any war anymore. On the other hand, Iraq also knows that Iran does not have a capability to fight the war. So this war is unlikely to take place between US and Iran, but in order to, you can say, the some kind of save his face, the Iran also sent a lot of ballistic missile into bases, US bases situated in Iraq. But nothing, this has not been escalated to some kind of war, and we will have to see what exactly happens in the future.